Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel, and today this is going to be a bit of a different video than the videos that I normally make, because this video we are going to be talking about the box office, but more specifically the box office for Pixar's new film Onward, which just got released in the previous weekend. Now, before we get into the video, let me just say this. If you want to support my content and if you like my content, please consider clicking on that subscribe button. It's really going to teach the algorithm that you like channels like mine, that you support independent channels and not these corporations that YouTube have, for some reason, have chosen to pander to. And also like and share this video. Now, with all of that out of the way, and before we get into the box office, let me just do this. I'm going to give you guys just a bit of a quick review for Onward, or at the very least, my brief thoughts on Onward. Now, originally, I wanted to do a review for Onward. I wanted to be its own video, but in all honesty, every time I tried to sit down and write the script for my review, I found out that I didn't really have a lot to say about the film, and that's because the movie, in my opinion, was just fine. It didn't feel like it warranted me actually sitting down and making an entire video just reviewing the movie. Because look, in all honesty, the movie was fine. I didn't think it was one of Pixar's best. I also didn't think it was one of Pixar's worst, which we're actually about to get into. I just thought the movie was okay. I liked Chris Pratt. I liked Tom Holland. All of the voice actors I liked, except for the voice actor for the Manticore. I didn't think she really did a good job when it comes to the voice acting. Um, and the story, if I'm being honest, was kind of weak. I mean, it's not that I had anything against the premise itself. I just thought it was kind of bare bones. And not to mention, there was the ending. Yeah, I wasn't really that big of a fan of the ending. But anyway, those are sort of just quick, brief thoughts on my experience with Onward. Like, there you go. If you wanted to know my thoughts on the movie, there it is. Now, with that out of the way, let's get into the box office and why I even bothered to make this video in the first place. Because this is actually very, very interesting. Now, if you're looking at your screen right now, you can see, here it is. Sorry, let me just move the mic a little bit. You can see the domestic gross for Onward is at $40 million. But what's more interesting is that the international gross, now this is just for the opening weekend, is at $28 million. That means worldwide it made around $68 million. Now you might be thinking, well, wait, why is that a bad thing? Well, normally it's not a bad thing. I mean, $68 million is still a pretty good amount of money. Um, but in all honesty, the reason why this is interesting, and the reason why I'm even again making this video, is because this is actually a very special case for Pixar, because they usually make a lot more money than this. I mean, this is a Pixar animated film, which is usually a film that families usually take their kids to go see. And then you have, of course, fans of animation like myself who go out to see these movies, and fans like myself who have been watching Pixar films since they were kids. Of course, you hear about a new Pixar film, you're going to go watch it. And yet, despite that, it still made only $40 million opening weekend, and at the international box office, it only made $28 million. Now, I know that there are a lot of variables when you look at this. Considering especially what's going on with the world now with the quote unquote flu. I'm only calling it the flu because you're not, for some reason, the algorithm apparently hates it whenever you say the actual word. So I'm just gonna call it the flu from now on. So I know that considering that, considering the fact that that's going around and people are kind of afraid, yes, you could say that that factors into why this movie didn't make as much money. Maybe families aren't really eager to take their kids out of the house because they're afraid that something might happen to them. But I also think that there are other variables to include when it comes to this situation, because if you remember, Pixar, for some reason, chose to go out of their way to mention that there is a character who happens to represent the LGBTQ community, and they pretty much raised the whole a whole scene about it, saying, "Hey, like it felt like they were telling you to come see our movie because we had this character." And people just, that in itself, whenever a studio does that, it tends to turn people off because it makes them think that you're only selling your movie based on the fact that you have that character in said movie, and people are not really eager to see a movie if the company that is that is responsible for releasing that movie, or the company that made that movie, is advertising their movie just solely on that fact alone. Like, people are just not interested. And even though, I saw the movie, and that whole scene that they keep trying to pat themselves on the back for, guess what? It's a scene that can easily be edited out in the movie. I saw it. If you edit that scene out, it doesn't affect the movie whatsoever. And I have no doubt that in the countries that they release this movie that have this stuff outlawed, they could easily edit it out and then just release the movie there so they can make their money off said, off the movie. Anyway, but the reason why this is interesting is because if you go back and look at some of Pixar's other movies, you'll notice that this is actually performing a lot less than their other movies. Like, for example, let's look at a movie that Pixar released before this, not including Toy Story 4. Let's look at Coco. Look at Coco. Now, I have Coco pulled up here. Now, let's look at the opening weekend. Look at how much it made at the opening weekend. It made $72.9 million at the opening weekend, with an average of $18,286. And look at this. Again, compared to the opening weekend of Onward, it only made $40 million. Compared to $72 million, that's over $32 million less than what Coco made. And if you go back, what's even worse, if you look at The Good Dinosaur, which a lot of people consider to be one of Pixar's worst films, even that movie at the opening weekend made $55.4 million with an average of $14,792. I mean, it's just, when your movie doesn't even make as much on the opening weekend as what a lot of people consider to be Pixar's least credible film. I mean, in all honesty, I didn't think the movie was that bad, but I can understand why a lot of people just did not like the film. And there is something else you need to keep in mind, which is this. The Good Dinosaur opened at 3,749 screens across the US. Coco opened at 3,987 screens across the US. Now, if you go to Onward, they opened at 4,310 theaters across the US, and they still made less money Onward still made less money than Coco and The Good Dinosaur. Think about that. It opened at more screens, and yet it made less money at the opening weekend than Coco and The Good Dinosaur. And I'm pretty sure if you look at some of Pixar's other movies. In fact, you know what? Let's do that. Let's do that for a sec. Let's go to what a lot of people. It's another Pixar movie that a lot of people don't like. Let's look at Brave for a second. Let's look at Brave. Let's look at how much money that movie made at the domestic box office. Let's just take a look, shall we? Let's look at the domestic weekend. Oh, this is interesting. Look at that. Brave, even Brave made more money than Onward. Brave made more money, which and a lot of people consider Brave to be Pixar's worst movie. I mean, I still think Cars 2 is their worst movie, but a lot of people really did not like Brave. I mean, I did. I liked it for what it is. And it opened at 4,164 screens, and this opened at 4,310 screens. So even Brave, which opened in less theaters, not that much, but still less theaters, ended up making more money than Onward, which this is not good for Pixar, because you have to understand this, or you have to remember this. Most of the money that Disney hopes on making comes from the international box office. And if you go back, look, it makes sense. Look at the international box office for Coco. It made $597.3 million. The Good Dinosaur made $209.1 million. Brave made $301.7 million at the international box office. Most of their money comes from the international box office, not their domestic box office. And if you look at this, when it comes to the international box office, it actually made less than the domestic box office, which is not good. Now, granted, this is only for the opening weekend, but still, this is This is not a good sign. This is not a good sign. In fact, I actually believe that Onward could be Pixar's first flop. It could be Pixar's very first flop. In fact, it's just out of curiosity, let me just check something. Word budget. Let's look at the budget for Onward. Look, they spent outward of 100 to 200 million dollars on this film. And so far at the opening weekend, they only made $68 million. Now remember, a movie has to make 3 times its budget in order for it to be considered profitable. It has to make twice as much as the budget in order for it to break even. So if they spent outward of what 100 to 200 million bucks, $200 million, and that's not including marketing, they have to make somewhere around $450 million just to break even, which is it's and again, considering how much money this is making, and again considering the things that are going around now with the flu, and not to mention that people, look, you have to admit, people are not really big Disney fans right now, considering what they've been doing lately. And I genuinely believe this could lead to the conclusion of Onward being Pixar's very first flop. And actually, maybe it's not his first flop. That depends. How much money did, just out of curiosity, let's check how much money did the good. How much did they spend? Okay, so they spent $175 million on the Good Dinosaur, and I'm guessing that's not including marketing. And they made $332 million. So I'm gonna guess that's somewhere around profitable. Hold on, let me check just to make sure. Just check for a second. Oh shit. So okay, so it didn't quite break even, but at the same time, I don't know if I would consider it okay. And it didn't quite break even, so that's definitely not profitable. Since again, you need to make 3 times the amount of money you spend on this movie in order for a movie to be considered profitable, especially if it's a Disney movie. And yeah, this is not looking good. And just out of curiosity, let's check Brave's budget. How much money did they spend on Brave? Okay, so Brave made they spent $100 million on Brave. Brave made $538 million. So I think, yeah, I guess it's safe to say it definitely broke even, and it was definitely profitable. And Coco was definitely profitable. I don't think we even need to check, but just in case, $175 million. It makes $807 million. Definitely profitable. Definitely profitable. And you know what? I really liked Coco. It was definitely one of Pixar's better films. I wouldn't say it's on the level of the first Toy Story or The Incredibles or even Up or Inside Out, but it was definitely up there. But yeah, it's just this is absolutely insane. I mean, the fact that we're even here just goes to show you that, maybe things are changing. Maybe people are just like, oh, are you? Or maybe, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't go too far. Maybe I shouldn't go that far. Maybe it's just, maybe they should have delayed the movie. Maybe they should have delayed the release of the movie until all of this stuff with the whole flu blows over, and then they could have released the film when people felt more safe to take their kids out. Although even if there was, not to mention there was that whole debacle with the 1 million moms saying that they were not gonna support this movie because you are basically trying to, and I'm quoting them, you are trying to indoctrinate our children into your beliefs, even though we personally do not believe that. So yeah, this is basically what happens when you choose to go out there and you market your movie based on, a certain aspect of the movie that again doesn't even affect the movie all that much. You end up antagonizing a lot of people who maybe don't share their same beliefs, and look at what happens. Your movie barely makes any money on opening weekend. You make less than The Good Dinosaur. You make less than Brave. You make less than Coco. And it is absolutely insane. Let me just close this for a second. And yeah, I don't know what else to say. I don't know what else to say. But you know what? Those are just my opinions or my thoughts. My opinion and my thoughts on this situation. But I want to know what your thoughts are on this situation. On how much money Onward made at the box office. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video. like, share, and again, subscribe if you haven't. It's really gonna help the channel. And if you are a subscriber, please make sure to click on the bell icon to let you know whenever I put up a new video. That is gonna be it. You guys are awesome. And before I go, if you want to find another way to, if you want another way to support me, if you want to support the channel, there is a link you can check out in the description box down below. That is all I have to say, and I hope you join me on my next video. Bye.